Hey guys, Ivan here, and in today's video we got something different from my usual content, and I already made a video like this before about Eric Janicki's peak week, and a lot of you guys loved that video. It got a lot of views, surprisingly, and a lot of the comments were about asking me to do more videos like this. So in this video, I'm going to title this video exactly as it is so you don't get clickbaited. If you are here, you know why you're here. Watch this video if you want. If not, just wait for the regular content tomorrow. But in this one, we're going to be talking about another peak week that I've done with another open pro, Dario Stankovic. Now, this guy is an open pro, but in the European IFBB. So he's basically an IFBB elite pro. That's how you call it right here. So he's not exactly a pro in the MPC or the IFBB Pro League, which he can be. And I know for sure he will be next year. That is the goal. We're working right now in the off season. The goal is to put on as much size as possible and then get conditioned. And again, guys, he's going to be a pro next year, an IFBB Pro League pro. Now, this peak week, this prep approach is very interesting, mainly because it's completely different from the situation with Eric Janicki. When guys prep alone, Dario prepped alone. He came to me just before his peak week. When guys prep alone, they usually make two mistakes. I mean, the general mistake is basically not being able to look at themselves objectively. That's very common with most people. But specifically, they either get too conditioned, too lean, and they lose fullness and size, or they're not in shape. They think they're in shape, but they're not. Now, Eric's situation was not like that. He had a coach. He wasn't making his own decisions. Dario, however, was self-coached. And at 1 week out or at 2 weeks out, guys, I was following this guy. I knew him. He's a friend from a long time ago. And he was massive, really massive in the off-season. I saw him in person. He was huge. And I thought when he gets ready for the stage, he's going to be enormous. But at 2 weeks out, he looked pretty flat to me, and I thought if he continues doing this thing, he's going to ruin himself, because that happens. That is possible. Some coaches, some bodybuilders don't think it's possible that when you are on a bunch of gear, you can do whatever you want with diet and cardio, and you're not going to lose muscle. Maybe it's not muscle that you're losing, but you're gonna lose a lot of size and fullness if you're not being careful, especially if you have fast metabolism like Dario does. This same mistake happened to him before with another coach, and that coach believed that he's not gonna lose any size, so he pushed him really hard, and in the end, Dario was shredded, peeled, but he was basically a classic physique competitor. He was that light, which was not supposed to happen. 2 years later, he managed to put on more size, but it's really the fact that he didn't lose that much size in the process of dieting down, and still he got shredded. Now, at this point, I saw that he was losing weight pretty quickly and that he was peeled. So this peak week, to be honest, guys, was easy for me. All I needed to do was to bring him in full and big and fresh. But it was tricky a little bit in a way, because when you get a physique that is pretty much already shredded and ready for the stage, and you're trying to revive it and make it as big and as full as possible, there is a possibility of that physique gaining more fat or getting out of shape or ending up watery on the stage. So you're trying to find that perfect balance. With Eric, it was different. You know, it was even more complicated, to be honest, more difficult, because in that situation, you're trying to bring the conditioning to the best level possible, bring the dryness and everything and hardness and stuff, but you're trying to maintain as much fullness and size as possible. This situation is easier, but still, it can go wrong as well. So when Dario came to me and asked me for help, asked me to pick him for his 2 shows, which he, of course, won, the first change that I made was I increased his food by a lot. He was dieting like a maniac. I mean, for his metabolism, for his body, his food was very low. He was like on 200-ish grams of carbs, 250, maybe 300. I upped the carbs immediately to 1,000. That's right. He was hesitant. He was like, why are we doing this? Isn't this too much? I said, no, let's see what happens. Let's do 1 high carb day and let's see what happens with your body. What happened was he didn't gain anything. His weight stayed pretty much the same. And arguably, he got even sharper. So I realized this guy has to eat a lot of food just not to lose any more muscle. In my opinion, if he kept dieting, he would just keep losing size every single day. And 1 week isn't a lot of time, but when your metabolism is racing like that, you can lose. You can definitely lose a lot of size and fullness in only 1 week. And Dario sent me his physique at 6 weeks out. And in my opinion, guys, again, in my opinion, if he dieted for another week from this look and did a peak week basically at that time, that would have been perfect. That's how I would put him on the stage if he was preparing for IFBB Pro League, for example. I think with that package, with that size, he was much heavier. He was like, I think, almost 20 pounds heavier. With that look, in my opinion, he would have won a pro card easily, and that would have been a much more impressive look. So that's kind of what we're aiming for next year. But the rate he's growing at right now, I don't know if we'll need to do that. He's going to be huge anyway. So again, the first change that I made is I upped the food by quite a lot. Again, he wasn't sure why we're doing this, but it worked. And we kept it there for days. So we started the peak week at around 8 days out. So it's not really a peak week, but it's like more 8-ish days out of the show. And again, we upped the food, we kept it there. Now, let's talk about the water, the electrolytes, the minerals. Again, with Eric's situation, I water loaded and sodium loaded. In this situation, we did none of that. Water was kept the same the entire peak week. It was around 7 or 8 liters every single day. Salt was at the same level, so sodium was high the entire peak week, pretty high, 15 grams of salt every single day. And then potassium was added from the first day, the entire peak week or the whole 8 days. We had a combination of potassium citrate and also potassium chloride. That was the combination we ran the entire peak week. Magnesium, zinc, and calcium were also in the entire peak week as well. Training-wise, I did something different with Dario that I don't do with a lot of people, but in some situations I like to do this. So Dario's weakest point is, I would say, his legs, his quads. And I'm not saying that his quads are small. They're massive. When you see these things in person, they're huge. But he has super wide shoulders, insane delts. And when you have super wide and big, bolder shoulders, your legs will appear a little bit flatter and smaller unless they are super big and super full and super sweepy. And he doesn't have the greatest sweeps. So what I did is I actually told him to crush his legs, to destroy his legs at 3 days out of a show on Wednesday. Again, that's not something I usually do with guys. I have them do a leg day at 1 week out and maybe some hamstring, glute pump, maybe some quad pump a couple of days out, but rarely do I give them a hardcore leg day a couple of days out of a show. Why did I do this? Because I knew that if he gets inflammation in his quads, he's going to get that bigger and fuller look. He's going to lose some separation, but I thought the trade-off was worth it. I don't think he needed that much separation. I think he needed more fullness and size, and it worked like a charm. He didn't do that before. He did it for this show, and it worked really well. His legs stayed big and full and huge, and when he dehydrated and everything, he looked also very separated in the legs. It was a phenomenal look. Oh, right. Oops, I almost forgot. Your favorite part, probably. Gear usage during the peak week. Of course, in the last 7 days, I didn't change anything. Absolutely nothing. He already started using certain hardeners, certain compounds that you use the last week of the prep. So I didn't change a damn thing. And I also told him to keep injecting everything until the last day. We didn't stop injecting in the peak week, nothing like that. Everything was kept in the same. GH was kept high the entire time. We didn't drop it, and we actually increased it as well those last 2 days. Usually, I do like to drop testosterone the last 2 weeks, but in this situation, I didn't think it was necessary because the fullness was the issue, not the conditioning. We only stopped clenbuterol at 2 days out. We lowered his reta because now he was eating way more food. He was still super hungry, so it was still lean, but I cut it in half, and the last dose was on Sunday before the show, so like 6 days out. Some other peptides were also cut those last 2 days before the show, like YK and also SLU. Clan, of course, like I said, 2 days out before carbing up. And again, all the other things like testosterone, masterone, trembolone, Winstrol, Halo, everything was still in because he already started doing it. I wasn't going to mess with it. We just kept rolling with it. And of course, we manipulated the food, the water, the electrolytes, the minerals, and stuff like that. As far as gear, we didn't change too many things. Training-wise, other than adding that one leg day, 3 days out of a show, I didn't mess with it too much. I lowered the volume a little bit. The intensity was still pretty high. So that's the only change I made. I didn't really mess with his split too much, and also with the exercise selection, stuff like that. I don't want to change too many things at that last week. We just played with certain things that we could play with. Again, food-wise, we started high, and we kept it high the entire time. We pulled it a little bit, I think maybe Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday a little bit, but it wasn't really low. It was like maybe 300, 350, 400, 500. That's the lowest we went with carbs. Fats were pretty much the same the entire time. They weren't high, but they weren't really low. They were at like 30, 40, 50 grams. And protein was at around 300 grams the entire time, a little bit less during the carb up process. Now, we come to the last day. Again, water was kept the same, sodium and potassium as well, but we did manipulate it slightly in those last 2 days. So Thursday, I lowered the water a little bit, and I lowered the sodium a little bit as well. We went down to 13 grams of salt. And I watched what happens with his physique. He did get a little bit sharper, and it almost looked stage ready. But I knew that was going to change once we actually carb load. So on Friday, we carb loaded like maniacs. So he had 4 IUs of insulin with every meal for 7 or 8 meals a day, and about 150 grams of carbs with each meal. That was a ton of food, a ton of insulin. There was some sugar in as well. So, of course, throughout the Friday, he definitely did lose some of that conditioning, some of that dryness. But for that, we also lowered the water. We went down to 5 liters for Friday. 5 liters at 1 day out is also quite a bit. He had about 500 milliliters, 700 milliliters per meal. And we lowered the sodium or salt a little bit as well. We brought it down to 10 grams for that day, and we increased potassium just slightly. Now, as far as diuretics, we did it differently for those 2 shows he did. Here, I'm talking about the first show, the Mr. Universe. And for this show, what we did is we did a dactone for the last 4 or 5 days, a small dose every 12 hours. And we played with that. We kind of kept it just in there. If you do it just a little bit, not a lot, but you're being careful, you're monitoring what is happening, I think it's a safer approach than to wait for the last day and then to take a diuretic. If you go hard with aldactone, you can lose some of that fullness and hardness and 3D. But if you're going easy with it, you're just controlling your aldosterone levels and you're keeping it constant and consistent, you're good. You're good. I love to use it in situations like this, but only a small amount and not for too long. And then we came to 1 day out, basically 1 night out of a show, and he was blasting full. He was super full from all that food that he ate. He also drank a lot of water. He had a lot of sodium and some potassium as well. He felt perfect. He was super full, blasting full, and almost super dry. But he wasn't quite there yet. And then I had to make a decision. Take a diuretic or not take a diuretic. But I thought throughout the night, he's going to dehydrate a little bit more because he had less water today compared to the days before. And we lowered the sodium, but he had more food, so his sodium was pretty high still. But I still thought during the night he's going to lose some of that water, extra water. So he woke up in the morning and he was almost there. He was like 99% ready. And the show was at like 3 p.m. and we woke up at like 7. So at that point, I told him to take a quarter of a thiazide. And that was it. So that was it as far as diuretics. He dried out throughout the day a little bit more. On the day of the show, he still drank, I think, 5 milliliters of water with every meal. He had like 100, 120 grams of carbs, some insulin as well, I think, for the first meal, and that's it. And the sodium was also the same as the day before, potassium as well, all the other minerals and electrolytes. Everything was perfect, everything was in balance, and he dried out throughout the day. And on that stage, he definitely looked a lot fresher compared to when we started. He was big and full and shredded and dry. And of course, he won the overall. Now again, guys, it wasn't that difficult to pick a physique like this. If I just kept him the way he was, didn't change anything, he would still look phenomenal. But what we managed to bring out of his physique is much, much bigger fullness, much better 3D look, and it looked like a freaking pro-open bodybuilder, in my opinion. But again, with adding a little bit more size and saving more muscle throughout the prep next year, he's going to look that much more impressive. And with a perfect diet, perfect prep, perfect peak week next year, now that I know his body a little bit better, I promise you guys, Dario Stankovic is going to be a pro next year. Mark my words. Really, guys, the whole point of getting somebody to help you with a peak week is just to make sure you're not messing anything up. Somebody who you trust, who's going to help you, again, land that plane. And if that somebody can bring a little bit more out of yourself, if you are lacking, let's say, that last part of the conditioning, dryness, hardness, maybe a good coach can pull that out of you. Or if it's fullness, they can do that as well. So basically, it's really about just landing the plane safely, making sure everything runs smoothly. If you guys enjoyed this content, tell me down below in the comment section. If I skipped something, perhaps you can ask me down below in the comments. I'll try to reply to every question you guys have. Again, if you enjoyed this type of content, if you want more content like this, tell me down below in the comments. And if you're considering hiring me as a coach, you can DM me on Instagram at evenbodybuilding_. We can talk about you potentially hiring me, helping you for your show. Just please don't hire me only for your peak week. Yeah, I can help you with that, but it's much better if we do a whole prep together, or ideally the off season as well. So again, guys, for coaching inquiries, evenbodybuilding_ on IG. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you soon. All the best, and bye-bye.